The Honourable Nanaia Mahuta.
Mr Speaker, I'm pleased to take a third reading call on this bill and to have been a member on this particular select committee. The contribution in this debate from the first reading to now have been thoughtful, and there have been a lot of issues of principle that have been brought to the House to consider, not to mention at the outset the issue of retrospective law change. Now, when this bill was introduced, I said that as a parliamentarian in this House, I find it difficult to entertain retrospective law changes because I believe that the threshold is quite high, and that we should err on the side of caution when we're making any type of consideration of that sort. So when this bill was introduced with the wider ambit of retrospective law change, I had a big pause and thought, no, we need to think further about this. Look, in an ideal world, both my colleagues Charles Chauvel and David Parker have outlined the search and surveillance bill as being the broader framework by which search and surveillance powers could be better addressed, and it has been delayed for far too long in this House. But can I say, from my perspective, in the time that I was the Minister of Customs in the last government, the search and surveillance powers of border agencies need to be far more sophisticated than many lay people will ever know, because it's not just about domestic crime, it's about the international crime network that New Zealand must be in a position to respond to. So when we were considering the prospective powers of police to utilise covert video surveillance, we were very clear on the Labour benches that they do need those types of powers going forward to ensure that they can enforce the law as it's intended to be, to keep our communities and our citizens safe. So we're very clear about the prospective powers of the police going forward. Again, at the first reading, we raised the issues of civil liberties, because whenever you ascribe powers to the police, that must be balanced with protections for the public. And we were very mindful that the bill could, well, in our view, was somewhat lopsided, ascribing powers to the police without adequate protections to the public. And that needed to be a matter that had to be considered somewhat through the Select Committee process, and I'm glad that we had that process. The other issue that we needed to question was the government's claim at the time when they introduced this bill that there would be 40 or 50 cases that would simply lapse, or be 40 or 50 cases that would have to be released as a result of these changes not going through. Well, in fact, when we got to the Select Committee and we heard the submissions from the New Zealand Law Society, the police, some legal experts, what they were saying is, in fact, there are provisions within the existing law that could actually deal with those types of issues, and they all urged us to reconsider retrospective changes which didn't need to have to be applied to these particular cases. I think one of the benefits that I had from the expertise that came to the Select Committee was to understand the nature of difference of those cases that have already been those people that have already been convicted and are currently serving time. We gained greater clarity as a result of the Select Committee process to make clear that those cases should be left alone and that they should remain untouched and be treated as the law was understood to have applied prior to the 2nd of December. Mr Speaker, this is a temporary fix. I'm glad that the time has been shortened from 12 months to 6 months. It does put urgency on the next Parliament to pass the search and surveillance bill, and no matter who is on the government side of the benches, the general public need to know that that has already gone through a full and comprehensive Select Committee process. It does have some support across the House, and it does address this issue of balance of interests between public good and powers ascribed to enforcement agencies, but also it is very prescriptive as to which enforcement agencies should have certain powers. I do regret that in the solution that has been agreed to by the House today, the warranting process or warranting method of ascribing powers to the police for covert video surveillance wasn't able to have been achieved, but this in some way what was offset against shortening the time for this temporary measure to go forward. Mr Speaker, there was nothing more compelling for me in the Select Committee than two lots of evidence. Firstly, from the legal profession, who affirmed, in my view, the view that Labor took at the very outset with this bill. You must have a strong balance between the rights of citizens and the rights of the police that must be made clear, and that retrospective law change is not a solution in this particular instance. The other second compelling bit of evidence was from a member of the public who was caught up as a third party to covert video surveillance. And she spoke quite evocatively about the emotional stress and pressure of being in that situation. And that again reaffirmed to me that the caution when as parliamentarians we're considering these types of measures, we do need to consider the civil liberties of individuals and society at large whenever we're addressing the question of more powers for those who are required to enforce the law to keep our communities and society safe. I want to thank the Clerk of the Committee, PCO, Crown Law, my colleagues Charles Chauvel and David Parker for the thoughtful contributions they made at the Select Committee, and I certainly want to thank all those submitters who in a short time frame made submissions to the Select Committee. My last comment is really to the Māori Party. Given the legal expertise you have over there, I would urge you to look at the changes to the bill and some of the recommendations of the Select Committee that got to, I think, a reasonable way forward to ensure that we can have a safe society, that the police can carry out lawful activities, and that we've been very clear as legislators to ascribe the types of powers that the police should have for this short period before we pass the search and surveillance bill. Kia ora koutou.
Mr Speaker.
Rahui Katini.